The Divine Peak, written by Tao Wang, narrated by Travis Baldry. He could hear them coming up the mountain, the jangle of chainmail and lamellar iron plates, the grating of leather braces against stone mountain cliffs, and the scuff of leather soles on wooden plank stairs. Protector Chan heard them make their way relentlessly up his mountain retreat, each step of the dangerous journey punctuated by random curses, muttered words of fear, and barked commands, while he sat waiting. He drew another puff of smoke from the long, thin pipe that he held in one hand, feet dangling off the edge of the narrow wooden walkway that was the only way up the mountain on this side, the only way a mortal human could ascend the Divine Peak. Wispy clouds trailed along the mountain range as a light wind roamed among the snow-capped heights. No animals, no insects, not this far up, not in any real quantity. It was a beautiful sight, the mountaintops arrayed before him, clad in their white scarves of moisture, offering peaks of virgin land untouched by human development. It was a peaceful sight, tranquil like the sect had been before the coming of the invaders. Long blue robes, layered in shades of light blue and darker midnight, rested upon Protector Chan's form. It was his nicest pair of robes, the best of three. Beside him, propped up against the cliff wall, sat his jian in its sheath, the narrow sword blade only 2 fingers wide. Even his best robes were old, light fraying at the edges of the sleeves, needlework parting on the delicate embroidery along the sleeves and collar. They were his best robes, silk and expensive, but they were old. He had never paid attention to them, for he had only worn them once a decade during the graduation ceremony for the sect. Now, Protector Chan regretted it. It would have been good to strike a proper figure. He laughed when the thought arose and dismissed the vain consideration along with an exhalation of pipe smoke. He adjusted his robes again, fingers playing across the silk waistband that held them close, and then extended his hand, staring at the thin outline of his forearms, a wrinkled scarecrow of a man. He lamented the loss of his muscles, his strength to the wears of time. He'd grown old, very old. The liver spots on his hands, the white and the long whiskers that trailed along his face, the thinness of his hair, each day a few more strands dropping off. Even the wrinkles on his face, they all told a story of declining age. Another scream that rose and then was quickly cut off. Protector Chan cocked his head to the side, judging the quality of the scream, the distance they had fallen before they struck a cliff, ending their descent. He had listened as they ascended to the cries when they lost their footing on the narrow, treacherous path that led to the mountain peak. The only publicly known pathway to the summit was barely half a foot wide at points, requiring one to inch their way along. Other times, wooden planks hammered into the mountain were all that offered footing, as the path crossed smooth, granite cliff faces. The way up to the sect was not meant to be easy. It was not meant to be used by the scared or foolhardy or greedy, and the first journey was always the hardest. He clutched at Master Ku's offered fingers tightly, his own barely large enough to grasp them properly. Master Ku looked so big back then, his broad shoulders looming before Yongjie, his own shoulders not even reaching the bottom of Master Ku's ribcage. So strong, like he could shelter him from all the harsh realities of life. A father that had abandoned him, a mother that had not wept when sending him or his sisters off, of rice bowls all too empty. Master Ku had looked so big back then, leading him up the mountain, on his first trip up. But still, Yongjie had stopped, pulling back on his hand. His master had turned, had said... Protector Chan frowned. He couldn't remember. Age had taken away the memory, just as it had taken away his strength. He knew it was important, something that he had carried with him all through his life. That had been his guidepost when other things had fallen apart. He wished he could remember. Another breath, an inhalation of smoke, tobacco mixed with just a touch of opium to dull some of the pain in his old bones, the injuries, like the one to his liver, the cracked ribs that had never healed properly, a broken foot from a misplaced kick in training. Just a little bit of ease for what came next. He heard the scuffle of boots, the words of encouragement as they floated up from the mountain below. They were nearly here, and this time the kingdom of Shu had sent enough. The first time they had sent soldiers, they only sent a single squad to take what was not theirs. Those bodies littered the ground below, nurturing plants and adding their bones to the mountain. Next time, they sent an entire platoon. They, too, fed the worms. Then they'd sent 3. Protector Chan had lost count how many times they came, always sending soldiers, never sending immortal cultivators. The kingdom had been persistent. Violence had not been the sect's first response, but their members had been waylaid down below in the towns and villages that fed the sect at the bottom of the range, asking for the cultivation manual. When that failed, they'd begun to kidnap their members, torturing them, trying to learn the secrets. A fool's errand. But they'd still lost good friends, good members before the sect had learnt the truth. When they stopped going down singly, the kingdom had started sending soldiers. They all had failed to reach the peak, of course. Protector Chan had seen to that. This time, they did not make the same mistake. This time, they were coming in force. Their last war was over. Now they turned their full attention to the sect. And as Protector Chan reached out with his senses, he felt the pressure, the familiar pressure of an immortal cultivator. A powerful one, too. Core formation, at the least. One who'd solidified his dantian, who was now searching for his Tao. Peak core from the pressure, as strong as he had been. "Eat up. No point in starving yourself. You're all skin and bones," said Master Ke. He pushed another bowl of rice over, liberally seasoned with soy sauce and topped with steamed bok choy. Not much meat, but Yongji didn't mind. He never had a lot of meat in his diet before this anyway. "You can't cultivate if you don't have a strong body." He had been so young, so trusting still, even after being abandoned, and so he'd eaten while he listened to his master lecture. "The path to immortality is long and hard. Not everyone who cultivates will reach its end. Both the heavens and mortal man seek to drag one down on that path. Only persistence and luck can see one through." He spotted them then. Soldiers clad in full armor, the small iron plates bearing them down, forcing them to slog upwards. He could hear their harsh breathing as the soldiers desperately tried to draw in more of the thin air of the mountain. He could not help but mentally rebuke their leaders for forcing them to hike in armor. Fools. At least the 4th, 5th wave's commander had been smarter. Not that it had helped. "Don't stop, or I'll kick you off the mountain myself!" The screamed orders from behind drove the lead soldiers on when they had stopped upon sighting the protector. He had chosen to meet them here on the wooden planks that creaked and bobbed, bent and twisted in the side of the mountain, where a single wrong step could see their deaths. Pushed on, face frozen in a rictus of fear and anger, the lead soldier charged, his curved saber held high over his head to attack the protector. The old cultivator never moved from his resting pose, finding a pebble next to him and flicking it at his opponent. It flew through the air with a resounding crack, one that repeated when it struck the soldier's lead leg. Bones shattered, his balance disrupted, the soldier stumbled and fell. "Why must I learn how to fight?" Yongji whined to his master. Even if he did complain, he still clambered to his feet, once thin arms now filled with muscle. They had started with basic physical exercises, but now they had progressed to punches, kicks, and forms. "When living in peace, one must think of danger." Master Ke walked around his disciple, using his stick to adjust his student's stance to his liking. "There is no peace under heaven, not for the weak. We train now to protect in the future." "But you are so much better than me. How can I protect you?" Yongji protested. His master was the sect protector, one of the greatest fighting forces in the sect. Yongji would swear he saw a small smile cross the face of his master when he said that. But just as much, he remembered how the stick rose and struck his unmoving arms, because training had to continue. The next 24 soldiers were dispatched just as quickly. When Protector Chan ran out of stones, He shattered the cliff beside him with a smack of his hand and used the newly created pebbles to continue his defense. When the soldiers hesitated, knowing of their certain doom, they were prodded forward by those behind. When that failed to move them, the screaming started. Figures plummeted from the mountain as the enemy cultivator approached. Caught between certain doom in the back and front, the soldiers charged and fell. Only when the core cultivator had made his way to the front did Protector Chun stand up. He was tired. Even this amount of effort, even this poor showing had drained him of his energy. Too many years, sleeping on cold floors, supping on meager rice, searching for that hint of wisdom that would consolidate his Tao, that would let him ascend to the next level. When he stood, he was sure the enemy cultivator had spoken, said something. It didn't matter, not for the Protector. He picked up his sword and drew it from its sheath. He had made his choice a long time ago. I cannot accept this. I don't deserve to be a sect protector. I am not you, Master. Yungjia knelt beside the bed of his master. They were both grown now. One grown old and frail, injured by a passing family of metal-born eater goats. The other grown to be a strong, vibrant cultivator. One who knelt beside his master's bed, tears filling his eyes, as he watched the only father he had known for 4 decades slip away. I do not think it is your path either. Asking you to do this is wrong. Your destiny, your Tao, it is not that of the Protector. This I know. What I ask of you is selfish, for myself, for the sect. But still, I ask it of you. Master Kwa refused to meet Yungji's eyes, though the hand that was clutched by his student squeezed tight as he spoke. These are dangerous times, and our sect does not have enough defenders. I can only ask that you take my post and set aside your journey for another life. For this debt, I will repay you. You owe me nothing, Master. You saved me. You trained me. You give me a purpose now. It is I who owe you everything. Yungjia squeezed the hand back, but realized that it no longer had strength, that it had opened somewhere when he spoke. He peered at the eyes which had lost all their luster before he reached forward to close them. Then Yungjia bowed his head and wept. When he walked out, his eyes were dry and his face newly washed. The rest of their small sect was waiting for him. In his hands he clutched a simple jade token that had symbolized his master's position in the sect. He turned to the old man at the front, the one who still stood with an unbowed back and a kindly smile, the sect head, and then Yungjia bowed as he proffered the token. My master has passed. The silence that surrounded them deepened, as if the pronouncement had made even nature itself bow its head in respect. His master's death had not been unexpected, not with those injuries. He has asked me to take on his role. If the sect head is willing, I am too. The sect head refused at first, forcing Yungjia to argue with him, to convince him. But eventually, the sect head had returned the jade token to Protector Chan. The pair of cultivators met on the creaking old boards. Their blades clashed, creating sparks that died quickly in the thin mountain air. They attacked and defended in a blur, neither of the cultivators giving way on the narrow path. A single misstep, a badly timed block, could end the fight. Strong and fast as they were, they had to control their strength on this narrow ledge or risk destroying their own footing. Even so, each dodged or blocked attack created fissures and cracks along the unyielding stone they fought beside. The closest soldiers had been blown back, pushed aside by the violence of their clash. But Protector Chan was past his prime, old and tired, and his opponent was young and focused, set on his goal. A missed block, a single extended forearm, and a blade entered a heart. He had grown old as the sect protector, spent years fighting demon beasts and ascended spirits, tending to the garden in his house, and training. He'd roamed the kingdom, never straying far, but searching for another to take his place. He'd succeeded and failed 12 times, never able to find another whose path, whose Tao was right. And so he'd continued as the sect protector, until he stopped leaving, content to spend his last years training, cultivating, meditating. The sect head would find another when he died, and he would be done with the promise and this life. It had begun as a rumor. The mysterious sect at the top of Mount Kangge had a cultivation manual of peerless repute, that it had all the parts needed to allow a mortal to cultivate all the way to the nascent soul layer, a step away from true immortality. A rumor that the strange lights on top of the mountain were sect members ascending to the heavens. It was a lie, of course, but like all lies, there was a grain of truth, too. 2 of their members had ascended, had achieved true immortality. The sect did have a cultivation manual that everyone in the sect followed, but only to the core formation stage. Even if it was taken, it would have been little use to those who did not choose to withdraw from mortal society, useless to those who did not choose to dedicate their lives to cultivation isolation. But the king's growing impatience drove him to extreme measures, all to head off death. The new sect head had found him in his residence, the small, mean building that he had lived in all his life, bereft of ostentations, no larger than any other residence. The sect head had found him and told the protector of the army that was coming, the one that intended to take what was not theirs at the behest of a king. And this time, they would succeed. The plan had been simple. There were other ways down the mountain, ways known and only traversable to those who had the appropriate cultivation level and knowledge. But there were still younger members of the sect who could not descend that way, not by themselves. And so, someone had to stall the army. Someone had to stay behind, to give the sect time to carry away what was important, to give it a chance to rebuild somewhere else. Someone had to protect the sect's honor. It was a simple decision of whom. A twist of the blade to open a heart, a jerk of the arm to withdraw his sword, a shove from the hips by his opponent to send him reeling back. After all, the protector had remembered what his master had said so many years ago. Protector Chan tumbled off the path, a last motion of the sword cutting free the planks. Small fingers tightened around the hand, a kind face stared back as lips moved. The enemy cultivator fell, eyes wide in surprise. "Don't be afraid. Your new family's waiting." Just like his had been. His family. Below him. Waiting. This has been The Divine Peak, written by Tao Wong, narrated by Travis Baldry. Copyright 2020 by Tao Wong. Production copyright by Tao Wong.